In one of my favorite movies, there's a great question. It's from the movie The Matrix, where they ask Neo, do you want the red pill or do you want the blue pill? I grew up in the 1960s and 1970s, and they would ask questions. Who do you prefer more, Ginger or Marianne? I used to watch The Little Rascals, and there was a heated debate about who's better, Tarzan or Flash Gordon. And those are all interesting debates. They have their strengths, they have their weaknesses. If it was just a coin flip, then we wouldn't have those debates. Hello, everybody. This is Nick Totaro, Professor of Information Technologies and Computer Science, Lakeland Community College. In previous videos and previous lectures, we worked with lists. And let's recap lists very, very quickly. One, they are sequential. They are somewhat efficient if you're looking through something sequentially and you're processing that information sequentially. It is somewhat indexed. You can slice a list. You can pull different elements out of a list by if you know what the index is. Now, you have to know what that index is. You can find things in a list. You're allowed duplicates. You're allowed list of lists and list of other types of variables. It tends to be very easy to iterate through. It tends to be a definitive list where basically you know from beginning to end how many iterations you're going to go to. And it just tends to be a very simple understanding of data collection. In this video, we are going to explore the other choice, a dictionary. So do you take the red pill or you take the blue pill? Do you use lists or you use dictionaries? Now, first thing we're going to do, we're going to explain the dictionary, look at it, and then let's make our decision. So let's go up to my screen. All right, let's take a look at an old program. I use this program. It's about counting Smarties in 10 boxes. I use this program in another video concerning decisions and iterations. There is a for loop in there, there's a while loop in there, and there's a bunch of decisions in there. But let's really take a look at this program. This is a bad program. It's broken one of my cardinal rules. One of my cardinal rules is not to repeat or not to copy code. Don't use redundant code. And if you really begin to look at this code, it's not good. If you remember from the previous videos, this one is counting Smarties based upon colors. And what I did was I basically created a series of variables, integers with the different Smarties colors. So I have orange Smarties, blue Smarties, green Smarties, etc. I set them to 0. And then I begin to input the information. I redirect a file of 10 boxes of information and I put it in there. And that's what the for loop for the 10 boxes up here. I then have a while loop that's going to sit there and count the Smarties based upon it's going to grab a line from the input. It's going to see what color it is, and it's going to increment the variable. Again, very poorly written. It works. It is meant to be used for iterations, loops, and for decisions, if statements. But looking at this, it's not a good program because there's way too much redundancy. Let me ask a question. Let's say, for example, I'm going to add a new color of Smarties, lavender or light green or something along that lines. I would have to go into this program and rewrite it. Then I would have to put a line here. I would have to put a line here. I would have to put new if statements here. And I hope through my copying and pasting, I don't get anything wrong. Very, very inefficient approach. So let's change this and let's use a dictionary file in which we're going to gather the information. We're going to use the color of the Smartie as a key in our dictionary. And then we're going to increment every time we hit one of those Smarties. That's going to be the value. Perfect example of a dictionary usage. Key value, color of the Smarties. The key is going to be the color of Smarties. The value will be the number of Smarties that we count. So let's go to another program that I wrote to kind of clean this up. And we're going to start with this line this block of line right here. You'll notice I always prime the pump. I always read the first line of the file. And then I'm going at the end of the while statement, while loop, I'm going to read the next line. It's going to check for the end of the box. That hasn't changed between the two programs. Prime the pump, read the first, and then at the end of each while, I do another input to read it, and I check for end of the box. It's this code right here. All right. It's this code right here in which I'm going to use a dictionary to count each of the occurrences. So we have the singular smarty. If the singular smarty is already in the dictionary, then all we have to do, using smarty as its key, find that element inside the dictionary and increment it by 1. If the element is not in the dictionary, if the smarty's in smarties, no else, then we create the first element, and we can see that here. So again, using smarty, that's the color. If it's not there, then create an element inside the dictionary, assign it 1. And I'm going to go through the entire sequence of that box, looking for colors, counting them, and based upon the color, that's the key. And then I'll be incrementing the value associated with it. Then, before then, that is a replacement for this right here, right? Far more efficient. It's going to be easier in the long run. If I need to add colors, lavender, light green, if I need to remove colors, I don't have to rewrite the code. But then it even gets more efficient after I'm done collecting all that information. So I built a dictionary with the color of the Smarties and the number of Smarties in there. Then I have to do that logic of determining how long is it going to take. Over inside main, we have a bunch of information here, starting from line 28 all the way down to here. We have all these if statements. And if you look at those, redundant code, straight copy and paste. Yeah, a little tweak about the different variables, but fundamentally it's the same code, and that is wrong. So what did I do? In the updated, I am going to first iterate through that dictionary. I'm going to loop through the dictionary. I'm going to determine the key and the value. So I'm going to find the key and the value associated. So the first one is blue, right? Then it's going to show me all the count for the blue. Then here's my logic. My logic says if the key is not red, any other color but red, if it's not red, then we do some calculations. Go back to the previous video about the calculations. Basically, the number of handfuls of Smarties, 7 per handful, and then anything left over, and it takes 13 seconds or something. Not going to go back in that, but I basically took all those if statements and I condensed them into 1 or 2. I basically said, instead of worrying about hard coding that the color of the Smarties, I'm going to let the computer do the work. I'm going to let the program do the work for me. So if they're blue, show me the number of blue, run the calculation, how long it's going to take to eat a blue Smartie. If it is red, if the Smartie key is red, then we do this else and come up with the numbers. And then eventually we have the total number of Smarties and how long it's going to take. Let's go and run this program. So I'm going to go to the shell, and I'm going to run the old program. I'm going to say Python, get my hands on the keyboard correctly, Python, and I'm going to say main.py, and I'm going to redirect 10 boxes, all this data here, right? I'm going to redirect that into main.py. Give it a second, and there it goes. Now just pay attention to box 10. We don't have to worry about the other boxes. Box 10, we have 15 orange, 17 blue. Takes 551 seconds to eat those Smarties. Now let's run the and we see we get the exact same values, maybe a little out of order from what we saw before because I hard coded it. Now it's based upon how it finds it. But if we still get the exact same information. Now, what we may not have seen was how much more internally, how much more efficient it was to use a dictionary. So instead of hard coding, as I gathered the information, I built the dictionary based upon the information. But here's where the magic can really begin. If I go to boxes of 10, I'm only going to worry about the last box, right? And I start adding colors. Let's say I'm going to add lavender, light green, and lavender. All right. And if I go back to my shell and I clear it, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to rerun 10 box. I'm going to rerun the original. You can see the original has not changed. The original does not show light green. It doesn't show lavender. It's still showing the 551 because on the original, I would have to go back there and reprogram the entire thing. Inefficient. So let me go back to shell, and based upon the new way using a dictionary here, let me run. And if I run this, and looking at the last box, you'll notice down here, I added lavender. There were 3 lavenders. I added light green. There were 2 of them, and it changed the overall value without having to rewrite my code. Let's go up and let's close this up. Okay, a couple things here. We still haven't answered the question. Red or blue pill? Ginger or Marianne? Flash Gordon versus Tarzan? Lists versus dictionaries? All those questions always come back to it depends. Now, I will tell you, lists can be very clean, very simple to understand, but when we start pulling out information on lists, we need to be careful because lists, or even finding things in lists are sequential. So if I say I have a dictionary of 500,000 words and I'm looking for the very, very last word, guess what? A list has to go all the way down. But when we set up a list, it's very easy. It's easy for the system to set it up. There's not a lot of things associated with it. When we're dealing with dictionaries, we have that key value pair. So dictionaries are outstanding when maybe we're collecting data like you saw me do with Smarties, or maybe we can use that dictionary to look things up. So it's never a question of let's flip a coin. It's a question of what are you trying to accomplish? When we're dealing with large amounts of data, personal preference, I tend to favor a dictionary, especially if I'm looking things up. If I am doing something quick where maybe I'm moving stuff into from a file and then I want to manipulate it, then maybe I'll do a list. So it's never really a question one or the other. You really have to determine what you're trying to use it for. There is more overhead in the initial creation of a dictionary, but in other videos, we'll talk about the efficiency associated with looking things up. So with that being said, hope you learned something, and let's definitely go out and learn something.